Well, the Department of Justice attorney who led the prosecutions of over 1,500 January 6th defendants is set to step down before President-elect Donald Trump takes office on January 20th. But should Trump make a clean sweep when he takes office on January 20th, demanding the resignation of all Biden-appointed U.S. attorneys who spent the better part of 4 years turning that department into a political tool? Joining me now is David Webb, host of the David Webb Show on SiriusXM, Caroline Downey, staff writer at National Review, and Hogan Gidley, former White House Deputy Press Secretary. Great to see you all. What an all-star panel we have. Thanks for being here. Hogan, he did it in 2017. Donald Trump did. He fired 46 federal prosecutors who had been appointed by President Obama. So he could do it again, right?
Well, he knows the power of the court system at this point, going after his friends, his colleagues, his co-workers, him personally, attacking his businesses as well. The government can be used as a weapon and as a tool to go against people simply for disagreeing with the politics of those in power. This is obvious, and Donald Trump is going to take most likely a serious look at doing the exact same thing he did before, because the American people deserve a blind justice system. And just like you said, they have not received that in the last 4 years. In fact, they've been attacked mercilessly by people at the highest levels in these departments and agencies who just don't like them, and it's wrong.
Well, David, really not since Richard Nixon. And frankly, I think this goes beyond what Richard Nixon did. Has the Department of Justice and its resources like the FBI been used as a political tool to go after a political rival, after all? And this is really third world stuff. I think it's going to take a huge sweep. You got to start with this a clean slate here in order to reverse the damage that's been done.
Yeah, you do. And before the left loses their mind, remember Bill Clinton has done this, because that's the response, right? Trump dictator, Trump doing this, destroying justice. I think two steps are prudent. One, review who's there, review their actions. Look at Graves and what he did with all the January 6th prosecutions, for example. He's resigning, but he certainly should have been fired if he didn't resign or doesn't intend to resign. So go through and review. Fire, and if someone wants their job back, then maybe let them come back for a review. Maybe let them come back and prove their case. But it doesn't matter who appointed them, because so many in the system ignored the problems, ignored the bad prosecutors, and that can't stand. If America is going to have faith in this, then everyone needs to have a clean slate.
Caroline, I want to switch to another part of the deep state. And that's the education lobby. It gets under my skin. I started out my professional life as a teacher in Chicago, so I saw it firsthand. I didn't last long there because I couldn't stand the bureaucracies and the influence of the Department of Education, which was kind of new back then. This was the late 70s. And they already had this way of promising money if you do things our ways. And a lot of school boards, a lot of school systems did it their ways. And we look at the results. We just had this thing from New Jersey. New Jersey has just removed requirements for teachers to pass a test for basic reading, writing, and arithmetic skills. So you no longer have to be competent at that to be a teacher. Chicago is where I was teaching when I was at Northwestern U. It's even worse. I mean, you have 1 in 3 students in Chicago who can't read. You have 1 in 5 who can't do math at anything close to a current level. How do we break up the lobby other than, or maybe including, just dismantling the Department of Education?
Well, David, your examples demonstrate that the Department of Education has always had this cabal relationship with the teachers' unions, with Randy Weingarten and the AFT and the NEA. These are behemoths that influence democratic politics and the way the Department of Education is run. It's turned into a boondoggle and a black hole for taxpayer dollars that has not translated into higher education and academic proficiency outcomes. We saw that over COVID. It was a scandal the way learning loss was felt by children across this nation. And so what Linda McMahon, I think, needs to do is sever that relationship with the DOE and the teachers unions, which are responsible for a lot of the corruption you're seeing.
How do you do that, Caroline? Forgive me for interrupting. How do you sever that relationship?
Well, they can start by not conspiring with the teachers' unions, the way that we saw with school shutdowns and with other mask mandates and COVID restrictions. And I just think Trump's going to, just with putting Linda McMahon there, she's not going to be interested in collaborating with the teachers' unions to funnel them pork barrel money so that they can continue to lead our kids into academic mediocrity. The other things, pretty easy fixes here, David. Don't ask the Department of Education to do a student loan bailout that is illegal, that makes waitresses and truck drivers foot the bill.
We'll take that portfolio away from the Department of Education. That portfolio should never have been removed from the banking industry that can judge risk, because as we've seen, it turns into a political tool.
Right, absolutely. So just reduce the size and scope of the Department of Education.
All right. Hogan, I want to talk about Democrats for a second, because they are still in denial. I mean, there are a couple of exceptions, John Fetterman and some other people. But for the most part, and denial, you know, those stages of grief, that's just number one. You have about 5 other stages you have to go through before you recognize what the problem is and you change your bad ways. When do you think they're going to at least get out of the denial stage?
That's tough, because I don't think they feel as though they're to blame for anything. It's their policies really that got us here. You remember, Donald Trump gave us record-setting success and record-setting time just a few short years ago. You didn't have to point back to Reagan in the 80s to say, look how good it was back then. This was just a jarring whiplash effect of just a few short years ago being able to afford gas and groceries, not having a wide-open southern border. There was peace all over the world. The exact opposite happened when Democrats came in and got control. And for a long time, you'll remember Nancy Pelosi only said, it's because we're not really selling it that well. It's because of the communications of it. We just need to tell people. It was so offensive to tell people, no, you're really dumb. Gas and groceries really are affordable. Oh, no, the southern border really is closed, even though people are being dumped into your city streets. They didn't understand it was affecting real Americans with real problems that they caused. I don't know if they're ever going to see it.
Well, the good thing for Republicans, David, is that they've got clear airspace. I mean, they can fly, and yet, David, they're bumping into each other with a speakers battle. I mean, you know, for once they've got clear sailing. The Democrats, or at least serious Democrats, are nowhere to be found. Now Trump has a 51% approval rating, which is much more than the 44% he had in 2017. So they have clear sailing, but they keep bumping into each other.
Yeah, look. To the Republicans, let me simplify it for you. The president's entitled to his team, right? His designates from ambassadorships, Kash Patel, Pete Hegseth, their respective positions. Part of his team is the Speaker of the House, and he has spoken. You can have your differences, you can have your debates, but he has spoken clearly when it comes to Speaker Johnson, and this is his team. Give him his team. If you want success, if you would rather lose to Democrats, let the divisiveness continue, but unify around it. Let the president have his team.
Caroline, very quickly, does Johnson get elected as Speaker on Friday?
I think so, yes. I think Trump's endorsement is really powerful in this case, and he will survive.
Okay. David, Caroline, and Hogan, have a wonderful New Year, gang. Thank you so much for coming in on this
Happy New Year.
Eve. Appreciate it. Happy New Year.